to Metro Talk. I'm Kent Shuffle. Thanks for being with us. Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is here. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, Kent.
And Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, is alongside. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, Kent.
Pat, video gambling in non-casino locations in Illinois began last week. The new gambling locations are part of the Video Gaming Act that was passed in 2009. They're finally getting started. Can we expect to see a lot more of these locations popping up soon?
It seems like some of the excitement has been lost. 3.5 years in coming between lawsuits and mechanical malfunctions and what have you, investigations of backgrounds and not enough investigators to do them and that sort of thing. Originally, the estimate was there'd be 45,000 machines and it'd be about $534 million in revenue accruing to this thing. But the way it's starting, there are only applications from about 2,000 places pending right now. At a maximum of 5 machines, that would be 10,000 machines, not 45,000. The city of Chicago and unincorporated Cook County, which together have about 2.8 million people, do not allow this. It's not permitted. That's about 22% of the population of the state of Illinois. Of the other jurisdictions in Illinois, counties and municipalities whose laws are clear to us, the ratio is about 2 to 1 that will allow it. So what I'm saying is if another third of the non-Chicago, non-unincorporated Cook County area of Illinois, if a third of that does not permit it, that means you're going to be up to almost half of the jurisdictions in the state of Illinois by number of jurisdictions not having video gambling, which I think is bound to cut into these revenue estimates rather dramatically. The state gets 25% of the take. The municipality gets 5% of the take. Any revenue is good revenue, but I think it may fall way short of expectations. And in the end, of course, these are machines that are in places that tended to have machines before and that tended to pay off with a wink and a nod to their friends. So it may not really change the gambling landscape very much. How much they'll pull away from the regular casinos, how much they'll pull away from Fairmount Park and Collinsville remains to be seen. But I think this may never really turn out to be the big revenue player that it was planned to be.
Jim, should we expect to see more but more gambling locations opening up in the coming weeks as restaurants, bars are allowed to fire up machines now?
Well, I don't know that it's just necessarily the 3.5-year lag since the legislation was enacted to the time that it's up and running that's causing this to be greeted with such a yawn. But it's kind of become almost a non-event. For one thing, when we interviewed Senator Cullen, the president of the Senate in the state of Illinois, we asked, why in an administration that was so adamant against the expansion of gambling would they allow the installation of these machines at that time, as Pat pointed out, an estimated 45,000 of these gambling machines. Senator Cullen said, well, we know these social clubs and bars and gas stations have these gambling machines anyway, so we're just going to legitimize it. And I said, so you know that illegal gambling is going on, so your idea is to legalize it and capitalize on it. And his attitude was, basically yes. I think the bars and social clubs and gas stations and so forth that have had the illegal machines are going to have a tendency to want to keep the same setup. I think 35% goes to the bar operator or machine operator. And in past, well more than that stayed with the guy who had the machine kind of tucked against a back wall somewhere and allowed people to sit in there and gamble. And as Pat said, pay off with a wink and a nod. If your cut is going to go down substantially, plus you have to pay like a $2,500 setup charge, I think it is. Your cut goes down. You're going to have state inspectors, in theory, crawling around your operation from time to time, and some of these operators aren't going to like anybody from the government running around their building. I suspect that they're not really going to embrace it. The fact that it appears that the estimates of new revenue this was going to bring into the state being overstated doesn't surprise me at all. It seems like every time we do something in this state or in most state governments that we estimate to have a huge impact on some social ill or another, because basically this is kind of a sin tax in a way. The benefit is overstated, and the revenue that's expected to generate never comes to fruition. Take into or add to the account that many of these municipalities have gone to either voter referendums or to aldermanic councils or so forth that have decided not to allow this. There's no way there's going to be 45,000 machines installed in the state of Illinois. Therefore, the projected impact is going to be cut substantially.
It's an interesting twist to watch out of Cook County. The county board chairman is a woman named Toni Preckwinkle, and she is proposing an $800 per machine tax to the county on every one of these machines that's put in Cook County. Now that would include the municipalities in Cook County, because unincorporated Cook County doesn't allow it to begin with. So this could be a situation where unincorporated county says you can't have them, but we're going to tax the ones that are in the communities. The communities are going to resist that. That may end up in court, but it also might suggest a revenue stream that could be tapped down here if the local jurisdictions had the gall to try that.
Well, let me throw you a curve here. If this doesn't produce the revenue that's expected, and odds are the legislature's already figured out how to spend the revenue, even though that revenue may not come in, and there are already political commercials running saying so-and-so voted for a tax increase, that's why you should elect me. If this doesn't produce the revenue expected, are we going to have to see that income tax increase extended?
In a state where we're spending money but we don't have from whatever source, I don't know that the failure of a particular source is going to make that much difference. I don't know anybody campaigned on this kind of revenue or something, how they'll be held accountable. It's a good question. I think it just remains to be seen.
And they spent the money 3.5 years ago. It's just we haven't generated any of it yet.
We need to take a break. We'll have more Metro Talk right after this.
Hi, I'm Audrey Lucchese, and I'm from Alton, Illinois. I love music, and that's why I came to Lewis & Clark. It's been an amazing experience here at Lewis & Clark, working with students that are so talented, coming from all over the area, and they work so hard to follow their dreams. The music faculty at Lewis & Clark they're fantastic, and they're there every step of the way to push you to follow your dreams. One of the unique opportunities that I have had at Lewis & Clark is being able to record my own music with a fellow student here. Being able to record our music has opened doors for us in the music industry. My long-term goal is to finish here at Lewis & Clark and then to transfer to a four-year school and finish my degree in music performance. I would recommend Lewis & Clark to another student because it is definitely a great place to get started and it can open so many doors for you.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
Watching Metro Talk, I'm Kent Scheffel. Pat Gowan and Jim Schrader here. Jim, state officials say they have found more than 1,100 inmates that they believe improperly collected unemployment benefits while in jail. That comes to over $2 million in unemployment benefits that were paid. Is this a serious problem, or is this something minor that we can ignore?
Well, in my book, $2 million is a pretty serious problem. Yeah, what I can't understand is how 1,100 people that are incarcerated are somehow or another still being paid benefits. And we hear stories like this from time to time, that Obviously, the government knows where they are. Obviously, they are incarcerated. Even with direct posits in the old days, things had to be mailed. So if it was going to be mailed to inmate 579-327, somebody might think it was a little strange. But the fact that things can now be direct deposited, you wonder how things can go on like this. We know that many state offices are understaffed, and we know that the follow-up is not there that should be. But the fact that they could uncover 1,100 inmates continuing to draw unemployment compensation is amazing to me. What's even worse is if I'm unemployed and I'm collecting unemployment, and the unemployment office finds out that indeed I was really working and that I was collecting these unemployment benefits fraudulently, they will go after me and ask me to pay them back. I don't know how they're going to get recompense out of 1,100 inmates that have continued to collect unemployment benefits. My other question would be, would the families of these inmates be somewhat of an accessory to the crime here? Because in theory, the inmates have no access to their bank accounts, so they can't spend the money that's being direct deposited into their accounts. If the families were continuing to spend the money, knowing that they were being paid out by mistake or illegally, if you want to take it that step, could they then go back on the inmate's family and demand that they reimburse the funds? $2 million in the state our budget is $38 billion, I think, roughly.
3 or 4 maybe.
Yeah, something like that. $2 million is kind of a drop in the bucket, but it's just one more instance of the waste and the things that go on unmanaged or mismanaged in the state of Illinois.
But you're going to cost us a lot more money because now you're creating family cells at the prisons.
Well, no, I understand. I mean, there's the point. If you have, inmate John Smith who's sitting there and his bank account's getting fat with unemployment checks every month, in theory, he doesn't have access to it. It's not like he can go down and spend it at the commissary. He's not going to have access to it. If his family is going ahead and accessing those bank accounts, they had to know that the money was not coming to them. The question would be is whether or not the state government will then go back on the families for reimbursement.
Pat, it's believed 1,100 inmates were receiving unemployment benefits while in jail. Around $2 million, the cost to the state. Is it a major problem for us?
Well, we ought to put them in jail, obviously. This is a little more complicated than it looks at first blush. There are about 70,000 people behind bars in the state of Illinois, including county jails, local lockups, and state prisons. The majority of the people in this study, backed by the Better Government Association in Chicago, the majority of them are jail inmates, not prison inmates. And that's important because jail inmates are not necessarily ineligible. Very common for somebody in jail to be sentenced to serve weekends only, or to be served evenings, to serve evenings only, to allow them to work during the day, attend their family during the day, go to school during the day, and they can collect unemployment benefits if they meet the criteria that they're not working, that they're looking for work, that they're available for work. I don't think the law requires them to be available for work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there actually is a certain number of these people who probably legally qualify for the employment benefits they've got. How much that's been sorted out, I have no idea. And it does seem to be rather absurd. If there are people serving prison time or serving full sentences in a county lockup, presumably they would not be eligible. But remember that the guidelines are such that you could theoretically be serving some jail time and still be eligible. You could also be sentenced to a day or two in jail. You could have been counted in the census on the day that they studied this. You might have been in jail overnight. On a misdemeanor complaint or something that wouldn't necessarily negate your eligibility. So I don't think we know quite exactly what this thing is yet.
So what's it going to take to find out exactly what it is? You're talking a pretty exhaustive study.
To look more, and the other problem, and I hate to talk about letting things slide, but there is a cost-benefit ratio to enforcing some of these things. If you've got to enforce it down to the iota of the rules, it may cost you more to enforce it in personnel and effort, then you're going to save on the other end of it. I mean, a certain amount of slack in this might be reasonable. I'm not saying anybody ought to get by with fraud, but some of these may not be very clearly cut cases of fraud. You're going to have to determine person by person, I think, what institution he or she was in, what sentence was he or she under, to determine whether a fraud was committed. And with some of these things, the amounts may not be worth the effort put into investigating it. I don't know what the status is at this moment. It's very tantalizing, but like a lot of things that are tantalizing in the news, sometimes when you peel them back, they're not as clear-cut as they might seem.
Jim, there's a group of ministers in St. Louis County that are saying the speed cameras that are currently operating in the county should be taken away. They say that voters should be allowed to decide whether or not speed cameras operate in the county. They say that the cameras currently are charging tickets to too many individuals who can't afford the tickets. They're the people who are least able to pay. Is this something that should be decided by the voters?
I think that it probably should be decided by the voters. I don't know how the statement could be made that the tickets are being issued to people that can least afford them. I don't think the camera can discriminate whether or not you're driving a beat up '63 Pontiac or if you're driving a new Mercedes. So I don't think that can be necessarily distinguished. The problem that I have in many cases with speed cameras, and I know that they can be a deterrent. I think people that basically try to remain within the law are probably aware of them, maybe more so than those that are scofflaws and they're going to speed regardless. But it's the cut of the revenues that comes in. And in most of these cases, a company will come in and set up these speed cameras at no cost to the municipality at all. The tickets are handled and processed by the speed camera company and are mailed by that company, and they get a hefty cut of the revenues that are generated by these speed cameras. In many cases, half or more of the revenues actually go to the company that's setting up the speed camera. Well, to me, that fact right there says that this is not about a safety issue. This is about a revenue issue. This is about revenue that you don't have to take your officers and set them on the corner with a speed gun to slow down speeders, which, in my opinion, if I see a black and white car sitting in the corner, I'm more likely to slow down than if I see a little metal box that kind of looks like that and I can't really tell what it is until I'm upon it. I don't know the point. I don't understand the point about it's being issued to tickets or issued to people that can least afford it. If the voters want to do it for the revenue enhancement, then maybe the voters can decide to do that. But the fact that most of these are being set up, or many of these are being set up almost purely as a revenue enhancement, like the stoplight cameras that have been outlawed in many areas now, I think it's down to a revenue situation, and maybe the voters do get or should have the choice of deciding whether or not their community has them or not.
Pat, should voters be allowed to decide whether or not we need speed cameras in St. Louis County? A group of ministers say that it should be an issue decided by the voters.
We ought to point out Illinois does not permit them except under very limited circumstances, such as in construction zones run by the state police. In Missouri, the argument of the ministers is that they appear to only be used in the poorest of communities, where the poorest of people live, generally not on interstate highways, but on highways used primarily by the local residents. So what they're essentially saying is the poorest places need the revenue. They permit the cameras. It's their own people who are sort of victimized by this, and that's the logic behind it. How far you want to go? Do you want the black box in your car to transmit a signal about how fast you were going, linked to GPS and what speed zone? You get a bill every month for where you were speeding. The technology is there for that. It's a question of how much technology we want to put into law enforcement.
We need to take a break. We'll have more Metro Talk after this. I don't want that black.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program in WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, you know, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year mass comm student John, we're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup Substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album called A Brief History of Love. This single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow! Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arts-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt. Thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
This is Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader's here. Pat Gowan's here. Pat, a group that is buying Union Station, says they may want to bring excursion trains into Union Station and have them use the facility. Is the area ready for excursion train rides? Are you ready to support that?
Well, somebody old enough to remember actually taking trains in and out of Union Station.
Me too.
Jim is. And being male, we never grow up. We love trains as little boys. We love trains as big boys, just bigger trains. I was disappointed when Union Station closed. I was disappointed when the renovation of it did not include some major railroad component to begin with. I thought, why not put the Amtrak station there? Now, I kind of understand it socioeconomically an upscale mall versus the socioeconomics of people who at the time, in particular, traveled by train, probably didn't fit very well, and there may have been some logic, and there were some displays of train cars, and I think there were occasional excursion trains out of Union Station. Unfortunately, it appeared that the Union Station as a tourist trap is fizzling. People locally pretty much tend not to go there, and I don't think it supports enough outside traffic for the kinds of shops and attractions it had, and we know that it's all been sort of falling flat. So the new incarnation would include this. Running trains is a very expensive proposition. Whether you can make money running excursion trains as a regular thing, I have no idea. Whether you can make money by attracting people to the place to take the excursion train, I don't know about that either. I'm not a businessman. I'm certainly not in the tourism business. I am saddened to see that Union Station did not stick the way many of us hoped it would when, I guess it was the Rouge Company reinvigorated it back in the 1980s. So I'm hoping for great things for it, and if it includes trains, as a grown-up little boy, I'm all for it.
Jim, can Union Station support excursion trains?
Well, it works for the zoo. I don't know. Oh, no, that's a different type of train. Here's my attitude about it. If this business group can put it together and can make money on it on their own, then I'm all for it. If it's going to involve tax dollars, where the taxpayers in the city of St. Louis or Missouri has to somehow underwrite this, then I'm all against it. If I want to go out and figure out how to have access to track and have access to what would probably need to be an historic train, because there are some of these around the country that do this, and can make a buck on it, I think that's great. There used to be dinner excursions out of Union Station, where you got a nice gourmet meal and you were in what was, a 1930s club car or something like that. Obviously, that company didn't make money, or they would still be doing it. As long as tax money's not involved, if the business group can put it together and they can get enough riders and enough diners to support it, I think it's great. It works in some states around the country. It works in some areas around the country. If the taxpayers have to underwrite it, I've got a real problem with it.
Pat, individuals working with the state's child welfare system say a $50 million cut to the Division of Children and Family Services that occurred in August may diminish services for foster children. Should that cut have been made?
This was a remarkable outpouring of opposition from police chiefs and judges and other advocates who said that if you cut the money from this program, you're going to put more kids in foster care who otherwise are being cared for by family members under the supervision of the state. It's bad for the families, it's bad for the budget, it's bad for the kids. Now the legislature is rethinking it. They've indicated that they're willing to put more money behind it. Department of Children and Family Services appears to be ready to rescind at least some of the staff cuts, and I don't think it's entirely clear how this settles out, but it may be that that voice of opposition was heard.
Jim, is it time to make a change? Should that $50 million cut have been made to DCFS?
I'm sure there were abuses of this system, as there are abuses of government programs in a lot of areas. But here's a program where the cuts are hurting those that can least afford to be hurt. Children that can't protect themselves, they can't support themselves. They're put into protective care, either by, as Pat pointed out, by other family members or the foster system. It's a recourse for judges to have a place to place those children when the parents may be incarcerated or going through drug treatment or whatever. These are the problems that the government, in my opinion, should be spending time and money on. And if you cut, trying to cut spending in any area, when you start cutting with a chainsaw instead of cutting with a scalpel, it's going to hurt. And I suspect in this particular case, $50 million was too big a chunk to try to cut out of this program and continue to offer services that are needed in the state.
We've hit that Jim Schrader soft spot because that statement was not made. The cuts have to come somewhere.
The cuts do have to come somewhere, but why pick on, old people and babies? I suspect you give me a spreadsheet and I can find $50 million in the state to cut somewhere else.
That's going to do it for this round of Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Thanks for being with us. Pat Gowan, one of the editors of the Post-Dispatch, has been here, along with Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph. We'll see you next time.